February 19, 1985, China Airlines Flight 96, a Boeing 727 SPY, is soaring high above the Pacific Ocean at 41,000 feet. En route from Taipei to Los Angeles, the flight carries 274 souls through the quiet, darkened skies. The flight deck is commanded by Captain Min-Yuan Ho, a veteran aviator. As the massive jumbo jet cruises through light turbulence, the mood in the cockpit is routine. No one anticipates the nightmare about to unfold. 10 hours into the journey, deep over the Pacific, a sudden vibration shudders through the aircraft. Without warning, the number 4 engine located on the far right wing suffers a sudden loss of thrust and completely flames out. In the thin air of 41,000 feet, losing an engine is serious, but usually manageable. Captain Ho instructs the flight engineer to attempt a mid-air restart, unaware that a deadly chain of aerodynamic forces is beginning. Crucially, the captain leaves the autopilot engaged. As the aircraft loses thrust on the right side, it naturally wants to yaw and roll. The autopilot silently compensates, fighting to keep the heavy 7047 flying perfectly straight. The autopilot applies maximum left aileron to counteract the dead right engine, but the pilots, focused entirely on the engine restart checklist, fail to notice the flight controls slowly reaching their absolute mechanical limits in the dark. Engine 4 is not responding, the flight engineer reports. The massive aircraft continues bleeding speed as it flies into a thick, hazy cloud layer, robbing the pilots of any visual reference to the actual horizon outside. Suddenly, the autopilot can no longer hold the plane level. With a violent shudder, the 7047 SPY snaps to the right, the nose pitches down dramatically, and the heavy aircraft begins a terrifying, uncontrolled high-speed death spiral. The pilots are violently thrown against their harnesses. The captain immediately grabs the yoke, but severe spatial disorientation takes over. Trapped inside the thick clouds, his inner ear severely lies to him about the aircraft's true attitude. The artificial horizon indicator tumbles violently, making it impossible to read. "What's happening? Pull up!" the co-pilot shouts. The 747 accelerates at a blistering pace, plunging toward the dark ocean at over 400 miles an hour. Inside the cabin, absolute terror erupts. 259 passengers are pinned to their seats by brutal G-forces, listening to the agonizing roar of the rushing wind as the massive aircraft falls out of the sky. Falling past 30,000 feet, the aircraft is now in a near-vertical dive. The aerodynamic stress on the massive airframe is unimaginable. The tail section shudders violently, shedding small pieces of metal into the dark Pacific night. The captain frantically tries to communicate. "Oakland Center, Dynasty 96 emergency. We are descending rapidly," but the transmission is completely garbled by the chaotic noise in the cockpit and the extreme velocity of their terrifying freefall. At Oakland Route Traffic Control, radar operators watch in horror as Flight No. 6 altitude readout plummets. "Dynasty No. 6 Oakland Center, say your altitude." There is no response, only the chilling silence of a doomed aircraft falling. Plunging past 20,000 feet, the speed of sound rapidly approaches. The 7047 was never designed to fly this fast. The sheer drag rips the main landing gear doors off their hinges as the massive jet screams downward. The flight engineer struggles to reach his panels, pinned by forces exceeding 3 GAs. The crew is fighting for their absolute lives, desperately pulling back on the heavy yokes, but the massive jet refuses to break its dive. At 10,000 feet, the ocean is just seconds away. Oakland Center transmits blindly. "Dynasty No. 6, radar contact lost. Do you copy?" The controllers brace for the worst, assuming the massive 7047 has already hit the water. But then, a miracle happens. At exactly 9,600 feet, the aircraft suddenly punches through the bottom of the thick cloud deck. For the first time in minutes, the terrified pilots can clearly see the dark ocean horizon. Instantly reoriented, Captain Ho recognizes their extreme bank angle. With superhuman effort, he and the first officer haul back on the yokes together, fighting brutal aerodynamic forces to level the wings and arrest the deadly plunging descent. The G-forces spike to an agonizing 5 Gs, pinning everyone down. The 777's wings bend upward to their absolute structural limits, groaning under the immense load. Incredibly, the Boeing engineering holds together. The fatal dive is finally arrested. Gasping for breath, Captain Ho keys the mic. "Oakland Center, Dynasty No. 6. We have recovered. We are at 9,000 feet. Declaring an emergency." The sheer relief in the AD center is palpable as the radar blip miraculously returns. The nightmare dive is over, having dropped 30,000 feet in just 2.5 minutes, but the aircraft is severely crippled, the horizontal stabilizer is heavily damaged, and the landing gear is completely locked in the down position. Limping slowly toward the California coast, Flight No. 6 diverts to San Francisco International Airport. "San Francisco approach, Dynasty No. 6. We require emergency equipment on standby. We have heavy structural damage." The crippled jumbo jet begins a tense final approach. Despite massive damage to the tail and landing gear, Captain Ho executes a flawless emergency landing. The 7047 touches down safely in San Francisco. Miraculously, all 204 people on board survived the horrific 6-mile plunge into darkness. The NSPY investigation revealed a stark lesson in automation reliance and spatial disorientation. Flight No. 6 forever changed aviation training, highlighting the critical danger of trusting an autopilot over fundamental airmanship when an aircraft loses vital engine thrust.